Hello and welcome to episode 353 of Retro Encounter, RPG Fans' weekly podcast of many topics. I'm Mike Sollosi, and I am over the moon, that's Earth's moon, and I am over the moon, that's Luna, Earth's moon, as known as in Mass Effect 1, because I recently finished Mass Effect 3. It was my first time playing it since when it was brand new in 2012, and I am so excited to talk about it with you for our third and final game of Month of Mass Effect N7 of November 2022. But who are the other Commander Shepherds that joined me for this Mass Effect journey? They are Wes Iliff.
Hey, everybody.
And Jono Logan.
Hey, wow, this has been going on for so long, and we're finally finishing it off. It's crazy.
Yeah, I think we started talking about doing Mass Effect for the podcast in February or March, because we had just done KOTOR for the podcast, Jono, and you had not played Mass Effect before, but Audra and I sang its praises quite a bit. So that, pardon if this is not exactly how it happened, but that at least got you more interested than you were in it than before.
Yeah.
So when we floated the idea out, I was interested in replaying the trilogy because, again, this is my first time replaying it since the 2011-2012 range. You were also into it, so I gauged interest from others in RPG fan, and Wes, that's where you stepped in. So we've been basically planning this and knew that we were going to do Mass Effect for the podcast since March or April of 2022, and then we're sort of playing these and recording these episodes out since June or July of 2022. So this has been months in the making, and I hope you guys had as good a time as I did.
Oh, yeah, completely. I'm absolutely thrilled to death that I got to play these games. I had such a good time playing them.
These are games I can play and replay over and over and over again, which I feel like I proved over these last several months, having replayed them for the first time in, a year and a half.
Yeah, I'm the baby bear in this scenario. I'm the one that's in between the two extremes. Jono, you played them for the first time. Mass Effect started out in 2007, and then the trilogy ended with Mass Effect 3 in 2012 with some DLC for Mass Effect 3 going into 2013. I've played Mass Effect 1 a couple times, but 2 and 3 only once each. But Wes, you have played the entire trilogy multiple times, and this is just a particular favorite of yours. But dare I say, Jono, is this maybe a new favorite of yours as well?
Yeah, it's terrific. I mean, I liked it so much I played Andromeda.
Which is not something I've done. So you're taking it a step further than I have, although it's not for want of trying. For some reason, Andromeda will not download properly on my PS5. I might have to find other means to play it eventually, should I decide to.
And you want to know what? I really enjoyed Andromeda. It adapted many of the things. It felt a lot more like Mass Effect 1, and not just because it was the start of a new story. It's because there was a vehicle, you drive around the landscapes. Like, there were a lot of things in it that really reminded me of the first Mass Effect. I really liked it. I think that it has a lot of potential, even though it is not quite as popular as the trilogy.
I think you might be playing a slightly improved version of it, because one problem with Andromeda was that it was hugely buggy when it came out. People heads twisting around necks, like The Exorcist, for example.
Yeah, there were very few bugs when I played it, but then again, I played it like years after it came out. So
yeah, I am slightly interested in Andromeda, but for technical reasons, I was unable to start it when I attempted to play it over the summer. And I'm not going to say we're going to play it for Retro Encounter, because we have a lot of other plans in the coming months. But Wes, has your impressions of Mass Effect, the original trilogy, changed since you last played it?
Not really, save that I realize more and more just how much power they have over me, The idea that I can play and replay these so many times and not get tired of it, and seeing exactly how well Mass Effect 3 still holds up, despite some of the turbulent times it had on release. It just speaks to the quality of these games.
Yeah, and let's focus on Mass Effect 3 now, because, again, we did finish playing the trilogy in time for this recording, but this episode is going to be all about Mass Effect 3, the final game of the trilogy. I think I like it more now than I did in 2012, and part of that is because I got to enjoy everything that was released in the post-game for Mass Effect 3, because I think I beat the game in something like 6 days after I got it in spring 2012. So playing it on Legendary Edition this time around, the visuals and textures are a little better than they were back on my old PS3. And I also got to play through several rounds of DLC that came included with the Legendary Edition. So this is my first time playing Omega, Citadel, and Leviathan. And also I got the improved ending, which was, still a little bit still not quite as layered as I wish it was, but an improvement over what I remember from 10 years ago. So yeah, we're all very positive on the entire Mass Effect trilogy. There will be more praise for it later, I promise. But let's go into the meat of the game. They start you in media res in Mass Effect 3. You are on Earth, basically grounded and forbidden from taking part in any international politics because of Shepard is in political hot water for what happened in the events of Mass Effect 2 Arrival. Basically, because you destroyed a huge Batarian settlement to delay the Reaper invasion, but a lot of people around the galaxy don't believe in the Reaper invasion just yet. Shepard is accused of being a mass murderer of in the high hundreds of thousands or low millions number of Batarians, which is basically an atrocity. And your commanders like Anderson and Hackett are sympathetic, but the end game of this is that Shepard is forbidden from leaving Earth for 2 years. So Mass Effect 3 begins on Earth with Shepard being called into to Alliance leadership because they've detected the beginning of the Reaper invasion, and practically partway through that conversation, the Reapers attack Earth, and you, as Commander Shepard, are like fleeing from exploding buildings along with Admiral Anderson, and finding your way to the new version, a new Alliance version of the Normandy spacecraft, along with a new human squad mate, James Vega. And I think if they survived, either Ashley or Caden is with you as well. But because I think all three of us saved Ashley in Mass Effect 1, can we just say Ashley going forward?
Who's Caden?
All right,
yeah, I think that's fair.
Okay, so I don't have to say Vermeer survivor or human squad mate awkwardly. We're just going to say Ashley. Okay.
Yeah, human squad mate, Ashley, the only human squad mate, right?
No. Now we have James Vega as well. So there's two human squad mates, or also known as Freddie Prinze Jr.
Yeah,
Freddie Prinze Jr.
So yes, Vermeer survivor and Swole Freddie Prinze Jr. And Commander Shepard all escape to seek out a Prothean artifact that was discovered on Mars, because they think that might be the key to stopping the Reaper invasion. There you meet up with Liara Tassoni, who's a full team squad mate now, like she was in Mass Effect 1.
My blue wife.
Yeah. She was my blue wife, and I reconnected with my blue wife in this game, because, again, my version of Shepard hates aliens but is very attracted to them. So, yeah, my romance path in the trilogy this time around was Liara, then Thane, then Liara again. Did you romance Liara all three games through, Jono?
Yeah, I did. I was my Shepard was a very, very monogamous lesbian who was really into aliens.
Excellent. And Wes, refresh my memory. How did your Shepard? How was it set up, and how did they behave this time around?
I started with Liara. Told myself in the second game I was gonna be unfaithful, and then couldn't bring myself to do it, and stuck with Liara through all three games. That's kind of the theme of my Shepard: is I want to be the worst possible, but I just can't do it.
I actually was almost the worst possible Shepard this time around, and we will get into the specifics of that once we talk about what happens on Tuchanka. But on Mars, you run into a bunch of Cerberus forces. It looks like that Cerberus is taking its pro-humanity stance to the extreme, and now their plan is to get as much Prothean and Reaper technology as possible and use that to augment the human race instead of just make them the dominant species. And you even find some Cerberus corpses that have been clearly enhanced by Reaper technology. They almost look like halfway to being husks. So and you fight an android, or chase down an android at the end of the Mars mission, who it's cutting ahead a little bit. A few missions later, is appropriated by Edie, your AI companion that's on the Normandy, and Edie joins your party as the official third member. And I double checked this. If you are extremely mean and neither Garrus, Tally, Ashley, Caden, if none of them survive and you decline to recruit the optional recruit in Mass Effect 3, your final party can be just Shepard, Liara, James, and Edie. So it's you can roll with a pretty light crew by the end if you make some poor decisions. But I think all of us did most of what we could do in the first two games. So we were all rolling with a crew of 6 or 7 by the end. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I think everyone survived mine. Well, except for Shepard.
Mine didn't. We'll go into that soon. But Jono and Wes, what were our thoughts on this action-packed roller coaster beginning to Mass Effect 3 before you get more freedom to travel around your ship?
I think this is the strongest opening of the series, if I'm being honest, because it goes so quickly from like West Wing walk and talk to not just an action sequence, but an action sequence delivering on what's been promised since the beginning of the game, like the absolute horror story of the Reapers coming down to Earth. And the whole thing feels so much more kinetic because they very quickly dip you into the new aspects of Mass Effect 3, like being able to vault over ledges and climb things, and just the verticality and the movement that feels a lot more engaging. It all adds up to like this really pulse pounding, action filled, like, oh man, this whole thing feels somewhat uneasy to me, and things are exploding and falling down all around me. It really feels like a proper action set piece.
Yeah, it's a great action set piece. And I mean, how hard, I mean, I know they were all dead, but how hard must it have been for Shepard not to just be shouting, "I told you so" at the corpses of the tribunal that was organized against her.
Yeah, and it's almost a slightly higher stakes version of what the Citadel has been doubting you for this whole time. Like I just wanted to scream at every bureaucrat in this entire game, other than Anderson and Hackett, and in a way, this is Shepard's "I told you so" moment.
And there were some interesting things here. I feel like the kid at the beginning would work. It works well for a character like mine, because like my Shepard is, space paladin. I totally buy that survivor's guilt not being able to rescue the kid. I buy that 100%. For someone like your version of Shepard, Sollosi, I don't feel like the kid would quite be the same motivating factor.
I was mostly just snarling at the kid to get out of the way and get to safety. So like I just...
Yeah, but then the kid follows you like the rest of the game, figuratively speaking, like the ghost of the child, which is interesting.
Yeah, it isn't quite... I think Mass Effect 3 sets up Shepard to be a savior of the galaxy, no matter how you set up him or her through the entirety of the story. So if you were a true renegade bordering on evil up until this point, it might not feel the same, but you can react curtly or rudely with renegade dialogue choices often enough that I didn't feel like it was totally betraying my Shepard's character. No. But following what's and to piggyback on what Wes was saying, this is an extremely action-packed opening, and the gameplay changes, like the additional mobility, really does make this game take another step down the continuum of action RPG, because like the Mass Effect game series gameplay has been more and more leaning towards gunplay heavy, and like as it goes on, the cover shooting is better in Mass Effect 3 than it was in 2, but it also gives you more powers and more customization options than Mass Effect 2. Like Mass Effect 3 gives you not as much customization freedom as Mass Effect 1, but more than 2, and better improved shooting than 2. And this is this doesn't happen until later on, but you have by far more weapon and armor options than you did in Mass Effect 2 in this game. There are dozens and dozens of armor pieces and gun loadout. So it has like the loadout system of Mass Effect 2 that makes the guns behave more uniquely than they do in Mass Effect 1, but such a high number of weapons and armor that it harkens back to the absolutely drowning in loot portion of Mass Effect 1. Like this is, I think Mass Effect 3 takes the best of both worlds of the gameplay and customization options from Mass Effect 1 and 2, and makes a game with a lot of really fun action and really fun tinkering in it. And I mentioned that I think the most party members you can have in Mass Effect 3 is 7, not counting Shepard. But it's a really good 7. We can talk about what we like and don't like about these after we've sort of talked about more people joining your party. But I think that if you combine the casts of Mass Effect Effects 2 and 3 then I think you really have an all-time great party, because the new additions in Mass Effect 3 I think are far more good than bad.
I mean, you kind of do combine it because a lot of the characters that
Yeah.
are available in Mass Effect 3 temporarily are, they were characters in Mass Effect 2. You still get like big plot lines involving characters like Jack or Grunt. Like these characters are still there.
Yes, and I do want to get to that, but again, let's move a little bit further in the story. We're going fast here. After you finally reconnect the Citadel, and they're more supportive and believing of the Reaper threat, you go to Menai, which is a moon outside Palaven, the Turian homeworld. There, you do some missions on Menai. You fight some more Reapers. You're introduced to more Reaper types. Now it's very, very clear that the Reapers are harvesting more species than just humans, and you see the Reaper Marauders, which are definitely Turians that have been transformed, Reaper Brutes that are transformed Krogans, and I believe the Reaper Cannibals are Batarians, I think. So like you're introduced to a lot of Reaper enemies early on, and while in Mass Effect 2 you fight Reapers as well as Collectors, as well as 3 or 4 kinds of mercenaries, as well as Geth, and a lot of synthetic drones. They scale it back a little bit in Mass Effect 3. The huge majority of the enemies you fight are either Reapers or Cerberus, but with some occasional Geth in a few portions of the game. But it's a lot of synthetic Reapers and a lot of organic Cerberus troopers. But the enemy variety and the potential for strategy and the more skills and abilities that each character has, I think makes this the best playing Mass Effect game, full stop. But after you visit the Citadel for the first time, you make it clear that to combat the Reaper threat, you need to recruit as many allies as you can and build up as many war assets as you can. It was called Galactic Readiness back on the 2012 version of Mass Effect 3, but they basically gamify and numberify all of the activity that you do in this game, whether it's convincing a banker to invest in Citadel banks instead of taking his money off world, or completing a major plot point. All of your decisions will be reflected in a war asset stat, and you're trying to get that number as high as possible for better outcomes when you reach the end game. Also also after that first visit to the Citadel is when you have a lot of freedom and can start traveling around the galaxy before you're forced to go to Menai and Palaven. So what do we think of war assets / galactic readiness, and how did you interpret it?
I'm a big fan because I was one of the people who actually really did enjoy planetary exploration in Mass Effect 1 and in 2, those, very, very different with probes and things like that. But I liked that they took those systems, refined them, and then they put this over top of it to give it a lot more weight. So it felt like these actions that you were taking when you were exploring these worlds and exploring solar systems genuinely contributed to the war effort, where you find like lost units and things like that, and just like random groups and technology. That was really, really cool, and gave me a reason to keep doing that stuff.
And the writing surrounding it is fun too. Like if you're planet scanning and you find a wayward battleship or something, that updates in the codex, and you'll get, say, 30 points of war assets, but also can read about the battleship that you rescued or salvaged, and all of that. So you get a gameplay reward and a narrative reward for exploring and doing optional content, and that's practically an ideal.
It really makes it feel more like there's this long-term impact of everything that you do, because a lot of times, the choices that you make in game will affect how good that war asset is, and in some cases even whether or not that asset gets taken away from you later when, say, you bring in a fake Rachni Queen and everything goes wrong.
Okay, now it's a good time to address how Mass Effect 3 does a lot of its side content, which we alluded to a little bit earlier. I'm going to use that Rachni Queen as an example, Wes. One early optional side quest you can do is, I forget the name of the planet, but you're investigating a Rachni sighting. And it's I think it's after you go to Tuchanka for the first time, but we can get to that in a second. But you go to a planet where a Krogan battalion has gone missing following a Rachni sighting, and it's basically a planet swarming with Rachni. And but the people there investigating it are a crew of Krogan led by Grunt from Mass Effect 2. And if Grunt does not survive the events of Mass Effect 2, then it's a different sort of filler NPC Krogan that's there instead of Grunt. But so your team goes through, you fight a bunch of Reaper enhanced Rachni that are real scary looking. And at the end, you meet a Rachni Queen. If you saved the Rachni Queen in Mass Effect 1, it's the same one that you rescued from back then. If you didn't do that, then the Rachni Queen here is a Reaper construct of a Rachni Queen from data that the Reapers harvested at one point or another. And the long-term impact of this is you can choose to eradicate this Rachni Queen a second time if you're like me and killed the Rachni Queen in Mass Effect 1, or for the first time if you saved that queen. Or you can choose to recruit them into your army. And regardless, you have to fight a whole bunch of Rachni. The queen that's there is definitely suffering and begs for your help again, which she also did in Mass Effect 1. But there's a lot of ways this can go. If you choose to save the Rachni Queen, but it's the same queen that you saved in Mass Effect 1, then you get a whole bunch of Rachni war assets. I think 100. If you save the Rachni Queen this time, but you killed the Rachni Queen in Mass Effect 1, then this is an imperfect Reaper Rachni Queen, and you still get the 100 Rachni war assets. Or I think you get fewer Rachni war assets, but they also attack some of their human handlers. So the Alliance Third Fleet gets like a -50 to your war assets. And then on top of that, if Grunt survived Mass Effect 2, and you choose to save the queen, then a lot of the Krogan battalion there dies, but Grunt can survive if he was loyal at the end of Mass Effect 2. So he's a bonus plus 25 war assets. But if you choose to save the Krogan, to kill off all of the Rachni and save the Krogan battalion, then you get no Rachni war assets. You get something like 50 or 75 Krogan war assets, and Grunt will survive if he was loyal at the end of Mass Effect 2. So the way to get the most points, I think, if you ignore role-playing, is to save the Rachni Queen in Mass Effect 1, save her again in Mass Effect 3, and make sure Grunt was alive and completed his loyalty mission at the end of Mass Effect 2. That gives you some Krogan, a ton of Rachni, and a plus 25 from Grunt. But you can have way less than that, depending, or just different versions of that, depending on those choices you made. And this is a long ramble I've been on for 2.5 or 3 minutes, and I apologize, but this is just one meaningful chunk of story side content that you get, and you get a version of this for, I think, every single major character in Mass Effect 1 and 2, except for Morinth, which is crazy. Like, these are really well written, mostly optional chunks of gameplay, or hugely impactful side quests that give you gameplay rewards and are cool story sequences. And if the character that you're dealing with survived the events of Mass Effect 2, you get story closure on them, and they'd probably join you at the end of their of the story too as a war asset. It is awesome. I was thrilled every time I did one and got to interact with my team again. So opening this up to the floor here, I'm going to assume that we all like these, because this does that Legend of Heroes, Marvel Cinematic Universe thing of rewarding longtime players for their time and attention. But did you have a favorite one of these side quests that involved a character from earlier in the series?
Well, first off, I just appreciate the fact. Can you imagine the number of flowcharts that must have been in BioWare, just like trying to map out exactly like the various paths you could take, like based on super early decisions that you make in Mass Effect 1, having massive payoffs in Mass Effect 3, just to keep track of them all.
I'm thinking a full office auditorium that is wall-to-wall whiteboards, just whiteboards everywhere that are more blue and red than white from just the amount of marker content of flowcharts on them.
See, I'd like that idea, but I feel like it'd probably be more like the basement mailroom in that episode of
It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
The Pepe Sylvia episode, where I'm pretty sure is rooted in Charlie's inability to read and him seeing the word Pennsylvania over and over on the mail. But please continue.
Yeah, let me see. I want to think about this for a minute, actually.
Wes, do you have a favorite side quest in Mass Effect 3 that taps into something from Mass Effect 1 or 2?
So I'm going to hijack this a little bit. I'm going
Oh,
to go
please.
wild card on you because my favorite is that scene with Arachni and Grunt. That is one of my favorite ways of pulling content from the very first game forward and making it meaningful in the third game. That's absolutely amazing. But I think this is a good time to bring up one of the changes from the original version and how galactic readiness works, because all of these side quests that you have that get you war assets are way more important in the legendary edition, because a good quarter of your war assets in the original game were tied into the multiplayer of that game.
That's right.
Which
Basically the single player war assets, which was called Galactic Readiness in the original version, is capped at 50%. So they all
Yes.
give you but the other 50% of your Galactic Readiness has to be from playing the Mass Effect 3 multiplayer or from playing one of the 2 Mass Effect mobile phone games.
Which is absolutely wild. I loved that multiplayer. It was this kind of squad based mission structure where you could unlock more characters and more powers and everything as you played, that I thought was an absolute blast. I understand why they decided not to bring that forward into the legendary edition, but that meant that the first time I played this game on Xbox 360, I spent an inordinate amount of time in that multiplayer section getting my galactic readiness up. And it's interesting because that's one of the only ways that you can go and like play as other races and whatnot. You can unlock Asari and Batarians.
You can unlock like Solarian Engineer versus Alliance Engineer, and they would have slightly different weapon or power loadouts, and unlocking all the different characters and finding the best combinations was pretty fun. It was a co-op horde mode and not a straight up PvP mode. I think that the mini game that you get in the Citadel DLC, where you get to go into Armax Arena and fight hordes of either Geth collectors, Reapers, or Cerberus, like is sort of a single player version of the old Mass Effect 3 multiplayer.
Yeah.
But it's their choice to remove it was probably time saving, because just like putting up this infrastructure for a bunch of new multiplayer would have been a lot of work, I'm sure. But also again, the legendary edition is all the DLC, but they removed the multiplayer system and retuned war assets to reflect that. But do you miss it, Wes?
I know most people won't, and I might be blasphemous, but I kind of do. I absolutely loved that multiplayer mode. There was such a cool sense of progression, and just jumping online with a bunch of randos and like having a common goal to work toward is something that always appeals to me. So that multiplayer mode was a blast as far as I was concerned.
No, it was good multiplayer, and I only did it for a little while to get my galactic readiness up, but I did enjoy it when I played of it. But the problem is, I mean, the player base isn't going to be there this time around, because I mean it's a remake that's confined to Mass Effect 3. Not everyone that gets the remake is going to play that all the way through to the end, although many definitely will.
Yeah.
I mean, it takes a lot of effort to have a thriving multiplayer scene that lasts a while. And Mass Effect 3 was the hottest thing going in 2012 when it dropped. So I understand why they wanted to get a good quality remake out and not include the multiplayer.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it was pretty good multiplayer. So I don't want to disrespect it.
Yeah, it was fun. I understand why they had to and did ditch it. And honestly, it does make your choices feel even more impactful. Because I found this time around, it was entirely possible to not get enough war assets if you weren't careful. If you made too many bad decisions, it's entirely possible to be locked away from the best endings.
I made a few bad decisions, but I had a disgusting amount of war assets by the end. I really wrung out all the content I could get out of Mass Effect 3. My final number was around 8,030, like between 8,000 and 8,050, around there. And I definitely could have done better, because I had a couple characters die in between Mass Effect 1 and 3, but we will get to that later. Jono, do you remember a side quest that you found particularly memorable? It doesn't have to be from early on.
I mean, it wasn't a side quest, but I mean, Rex is one of my favorite characters in the game. I really, really like him. I really would be upset if he wasn't there. The way that the games diverge in when you go to
Tuchanka?
Yeah, and then I think his brother is in charge instead of him if he's dead, and his brother is, shall we say, less enthused about humanity.
Yeah, Rex's broodmate Reeve is who I had there instead of Rex because I made the regrettable decision to kill Rex on Vermeer in Mass Effect 1. And Reeve is he's anti-human, anti-Turian, anti-Solarian. But after you meet up with the Turians on Palaven and Garrus joins your party if he survived the events of Mass Effect 2, your next mission is to broker peace between the Turians and the Krogan so that Krogans will join your effort to stop the Reapers. And in doing this, you promise Rex or Reeve to cure the genophage, and then depending on whether you saved Malin's research data in Morden's side quest in Mass Effect 2 or not, that will factor in. If you did, then there's a female Krogan that's codenamed Eve that will survive the events of Tuchanka and give you a bunch of extra Krogan war assets. But the what happens on Tuchanka is not only paying off one of the original conflicts of Mass Effect 1, but is the first sort of meaningful story breakpoint of the game. John, let's talk about Tuchanka a little bit. So you
Sure.
did have Rex surviving.
I did.
So Rex insisted that, and Rex respects you and will join you in the fight against the Reapers, but you have to make good on your promise to cure the genophage.
Mm-hmm. And I don't really have a problem with that as long as he's in charge. I feel like if Rex was dead or his brother was in charge, I might have taken the deal offered to me by the
Solarian Council.
Solarian, yeah. Where she's like, if you deliberately sabotage the cure, I can give you more resources. But they have a good leader and they have a good future ahead of them, and they got screwed. They really did. I have no problem at all with trying to save them.
I have a lot to say about this because I wanted to see how the other outcome went. 10 years ago when I played Mass Effect 2, I did every step I could to cure the genophage, and it went pretty well, about as well as it could have. But I wanted to try the opposite path this time around for Mass Effect 3, which is why I killed Rex on Vermeer in Mass Effect 1 on purpose. But basically on Tuchanka, you're either Rex or Reeve insists you cure the genophage. You go to Surkesh, which is the Solarian homeworld. You go to the homeworlds of the Turians, Solarians, Asari, and who else? And the Quarians in Mass Effect 3, which are only talked about in the previous game, so that's exciting. But you go to Surkesh. If Morden survived the events of Mass Effect 2, then he's the geneticist that you have that is getting you Eve and the possible cure for the genophage. So and there's a Cerberus attack on Surkesh that you have to fight through. Then back on Tuchanka, there's a Reaper attack, and you have to trick the queen of the Thresher Maw sandworms, or not trick her, direct her into attacking the Reaper to defeat the Reaper there. And then get to a sort of a weather beacon station to spread the genophage cure through the atmosphere, so it'll go through all of Tuchanka and cure the next generation of Krogan of the genophage. But the way to cure the genophage and get the most out of your war assets here is to have Rex as the leader of the Krogan, because he's just a smarter and a better leader than Reeve. You have to save Malin's data in Mass Effect 2. Morden has to survive Mass Effect 2. And then when the Solarian Counselor tries to basically tells you secretly that they'll if you fake curing the genophage or sabotage the genophage, then they'll give you more Solarian troops for the Reapers. You have to refuse that offer and basically go into the weather beacon intending to cure it. But if everything goes right, then Morden, in one of the most devastating moments of the whole series, goes up the elevator, programs in the genophage cure, delivers it properly, but then dies with a smile on his face as the beacon is destroyed after releasing the cure. And
saving if you get a certain cutscene in Mass Effect 2.
Yeah, and it's heartbreaking. I love Morden. He is one of my favorite characters in the entire series. The fast-talking, pragmatic to a fault Solarian scientist who is also a little bit of a badass because he's not above shooting a fool if they're attacking his clinic in Mass Effect 2. And he was one of the architects of the genophage 20 years earlier. But this time he's had a change of heart and thinks that the Krogan deserve a chance to thrive as a member of the galactic community. And because I like the Krogan and I like Morden, I was a little sad with the choices I made this time around, because if you do everything the opposite of what I just said, if Reeve is in charge of the Krogans and you destroy Malin's research data in Mass Effect 2, you can talk, if your renegade score is very high, you can talk Morden out of faking the genophage cure. So Morden doesn't die. He sends up an empty elevator into the top of the tower, so people still believe someone went into the top of the tower to cure it. And Morden has to go into hiding so that everyone believes that he died on that tower. But you will get fewer Krogan troops in war assets if you make this choice, but more Solarian war assets. And also Morden will give you a cool plus 25 war assets because he's sent to work on the Alliance Crucible project, which is the plans that you found on Mars to try and stop the Reapers. Now that I know how both paths go, but also if you try to sabotage the genophage and Rex is in charge, he sees through your deception and attacks you, and you have to shoot him and kill him. But Reeve does not see through the deception and is only excited to be a new Krogan warlord. So if you kill Rex and sabotage the genophage, you get a lot of Solarian war assets. But if Rex is the leader and Morden dies and the genophage is cured, you get a ton of Krogan war assets. And also Eve survives if you cure the genophage, and she passes away due to her poor health if you destroyed Malin's data and sabotage the genophage. So there's a lot of different ways that this could go. And maybe it's just my bleeding heart paragon in me, but I think that curing the genophage is ultimately more satisfying. And Wes, you've been a little quiet. You definitely know how both sides of the story goes. How did it go for you this time? And what do you think is the more appealing path?
I couldn't stop myself from curing the genophage. This is kind of the redemption arc. It's almost like that child that keeps replaying in good old Borpo Shepard's mind is actually changing his mind a little bit as he goes. He's kind of living down that guilt and making slightly better decisions here, because it is more satisfying. I mean, it's a heroic death for Morden. A death is still sad, but is it any sadder than him having to just live in hiding for the rest of his life? Kind of live this half-life.
He does get a heroic, if futile, death if you shoot him.
Yeah.
Where he does his best, but I mean,
it's better to die for something in my mind, so I can't resist.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the choices in this game, this is my only real problem with some of the choices in Mass Effect. To get the most satisfying resolutions to the stories, to the character arcs, to things like that, if you're playing as a renegade, you still have to make Paragon choices in certain places. You have to make the right choices. You have to be a good person in order to get many of the more the better endings to these stories, in my opinion. Like, I suppose that if I was a massive nihilist, shooting Morden and watching him desperately try to get to the elevator and climb up and rescue to cure the genophage, but then failing and dying in an explosion would give me some kind of a shot of adrenaline, but like, it doesn't. That's just horrific to me.
Curing the genophage or not curing the genophage isn't really Paragon or Renegade. It's more just it's more neutral, and you can use Paragon persuasion and Renegade intimidation to achieve either of those ends. But they really do communicate that that curing the genophage is good and sabotaging it is bad in a way that I was specifically role playing. But this also made me realize deep down in my heart of hearts, I am not a renegade. I found this playthrough interesting in some ways, but a little dissatisfying because I made the renegade choice 90% of the time. I did some Paragon interrupts here and there because sometimes I was sure it was going to give me more points. Sometimes it just felt like what I wanted to do. But I didn't like sabotaging the genophage, even though Morden survives. And I didn't like just being super rude to Liara and Tali all the time. Because Liara and Tali are both just very, very good-natured characters. And even though Liara is considerably more hardened in Mass Effect 3 than she is in Mass Effect 1, going Renegade makes both of them act somewhat coldly towards you, and I didn't like that. I just wanted to be nice to my to my space lady crew, and
I feel like in a lot of cases, and this is the difference between this might just be for me, but I think part of the difference between like a television show or a movie and a video game is that in those things we sometimes get a charge out of watching people make hard choices or watch people make the wrong choices. That explains Breaking Bad, that kind of thing. But when you're playing as the main character and you are trying to make those choices, I feel like it gives you a completely different feeling. Like to try to be a jerk to these characters that are your friends and you genuinely like. I feel like that is more difficult for me than to watch someone be a jerk, if that makes sense.
You can't yell at the screen, "No, Shepard, don't do that," because you made Shepard do that.
Yeah, exactly. Why are you doing that? No, don't put the mouse button lower. No.
And well, the thing is, I mean, I usually tend towards doing a good playthrough or a good guy playthrough rather than a bad guy playthrough on games with karma systems like this, because that's more in my nature, and I think most of the time better fits the situation. But I've done bad guy playthroughs before of games. Like I think one of my favorite bad guy story routes is in Infamous 2 for the PS3. The scene at the end of that game, if you make a lot of evil choices, is just absolutely devastating, but in a beautiful way. The thing is, I feel so close to these characters that I want to give them their best selves and treat them well. So we're skipping ahead a little bit, but I really was a little upset that I didn't have Rex around late in the game because I killed him in Mass Effect 1, or that I didn't do any of Samara's stuff because I chose Morinth over Samara in Mass Effect 2. And a lot of Renegade options had me very cold or rude towards. I especially noticed it for Liara and Tali, but that's also true for basically your entire team if you go full Renegade. Like I playing through this Mass Effect 3 in this way, maybe even more so in 3 than in 2, really made me want to replay the entire trilogy again and make different choices. Because I don't know. I just think that this game is the most satisfying if as many people survive as possible and you have the deepest crew possible towards the end. And we went pretty deep into the Grunt and Rachni scenario. There is a scene in a monastery of Ardat Yakshi that is a lot different if Samara is on your team or not, and you basically get better outcomes if Samara is with you. But if she's dead, like she was for me, you basically just see two Asari in love suffering and one of them committing suicide. That also is the scene that teaches you that the Reaper Banshee monsters are made from Asari Ardat Yakshi, and Banshees might be the most dangerous regular enemy in this game. They have biotics, they teleport, they have 1 or 2 layers of barriers and armor to deal with. They are a pain, and fortunately I had energy drain and sniper rifles to take care of them a lot, but
they also have a terrifying screech that I cannot get out of my brain.
Yes, they have the most haunting audio of any Reaper enemy, and that includes the Reaper big ships themselves. It's a little frightening.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't help but feel that drama and compelling scenarios come out of character relationships. And I feel like if you are going for an evil playthrough or a heavy renegade playthrough, your relationships are going to be cut short because you're not going to be able to deepen them because you're, a jerk. And because of that, a lot of the stories are not going to hit as hard as they probably should or be as interesting as they possibly should because you just don't know these characters, like the stand-in characters who are there for Rex, for example, or Mordin. There's no emotional resonance there. There's nothing. They're just kind of stand-ins because they're the characters who they are supposed to be are dead.
You do get to know Reeve in Mass Effect 2 and 3 if Rex dies in Mass Effect 1, but he's definitely just a short-sighted jerk and not nearly the deep character that Rex is. But
you understand my point, which is like these stories really do hit hard because by the third game you have survived so many trials and tribulations with these people and these characters that the storylines the impact that you feel on an individual level for each of them is very strong. Like the whole thing with Tally landing on the homeworld and things like that. Like if that for me is very, very, it's difficult to imagine how that plays out in an interesting way if Tally's dead.
Yeah, and well, to be fair, I did make a lot of renegade choices, even on the Rannoch section of the story, and we can go there anyway right now because that is the next part of the story. After let me give me a minute to go through the story a little bit. After you resolve the genophage, you have a bunch of Turian, Krogan, and Solarian war assets, but exactly how many of each depends on your decisions, of course. And that opens the sort of Act 2 of this 3-act play, or 3-act play plus a finale, where you have a mission on the Citadel where Counselor Udina tries to do a give away the Citadel to Cerberus. So there's a mission there where you have to fight a bunch of Cerberus troops, and then depending on if they survived or not, you're either saved by Thane if he survives Mass Effect 2, or Kirrahe if Thane is dead but Kirrahe survived Mass Effect 1, or if neither of them survived, Ashley or Caden, who is there as Udina's bodyguard, will sacrifice themselves to stop Udina from allowing the Cerberus coup to finish. Or if Thane or Kirrahe stops the assassin, and Ashley or Caden, if they don't trust you, then they might try to attack you, and you have to shoot Ashley. I'm going to just say Ashley because it was Ashley for all three of us. So in the events of the Cerberus takeover of the Citadel right after the Tuchanka missions, it can be you shooting Ashley. It could be Ashley eventually joining you and seeing the error of her ways. Either Kirrahe, Thane, or no one can provide an assist. It was Thane for me because Thane was loyal and survived at the ends of Mass Effect 2. But what happened with me unusually is to basically get this to happen in a positive way, you have to be nice to Ashley. You have to visit her on the Citadel when she's at the hospital recovering from her injury on Mars. You have to, if you romanced her in Mass Effect 1, I think you have to, you basically have to not cheat on her, because if you do cheat on her in Mass Effect 2 or 3, that's negative points in your favor. You have to respond to her questions positively when you do talk to her, and perform either a very high Paragon check or a high intimidation check when there's the sort of standoff on the Citadel, which can end in you shooting Udina or Ashley shooting Udina, or maybe there's another outcome that I didn't encounter. But Ashley is awful. If you're bad to Ashley and she decides to side with Cerberus, you can shoot her, and in her dying breath, she will even say, "I hope the Reapers send you to hell," which is about the worst thing I can think of in this scenario. But or she can, like, if she's very trusting of you, she'll save you and she'll join your party afterwards, becoming the your I guess 6th or 7th party member, depending on the order of things. Or where I landed was I did gain her trust. She stopped Udina. She's definitely on my side. But then I was given a Paragon only option to convince her to join me, because I was nice to her, but not nice enough in the lead up to this event. So she did not join my party. I didn't have the she didn't trust me enough, because she still believed I was maybe siding with Cerberus or not supportive enough. So what happened was she ends up not joining my party, but she does rejoin the Alliance and gives me plus 25 points of war assets if you can't Paragon persuade Ashley to join you at the end. But so that's not the worst outcome, because I still had, if I wanted an assault rifle user, I still had Garrus or James. But yeah, just I weirdly found the middle ground for having Ashley's support at the Citadel stage. What do you think of how this went for you?
Udina's betrayal is something that I actually had problems with, because they really do leave it open-ended whether or not he was indoctrinated or not. We don't know whether or not that's true. I can't help but feel he is, because although the character has been portrayed as a massive jerk for all 3 games, at no point did I ever feel like he was a traitor. I feel like he was just a dick, but like a loyal one. So the fact that he turned around and betrayed the Citadel for Cerberus, and technically, in that particular case, the Reapers as well, I feel like you would have to be indoctrinated. And the fact that they left that open-ended, just, I don't know, there's something about it that made me go, I feel like that character was more complex than the choice that he made. But that just might be where I'm coming at it from. I thought it was an interesting way. Now, how it went down in my particular playthrough is we got to the ship, he, grabbed the hostage, and I let Ashley shoot him because I felt like that was better character development for her. And then Ashley joined me because by that point, she trusted me and stuff. So
did it go differently for you, Wes?
More or less the same, although I didn't let Ashley take it.
Beppo ain't giving any of the credit to anyone else.
No. But I'm kind of with you on that, Jono, that it's a weird character turn for Udina. I like my villains to have some kind of moral structure that they're adhering to, even if it's a deplorable moral structure. It always makes it more interesting if you can kind of see how the gears are working with them, to me. Even if those gears are wildly miscalibrated and they're doing things that, you would think that no human being would make, but I like them when they follow consistently.
I mean, one of my favorite heroic type characters, or even antagonist type characters, is a character who is, personally speaking, just horrible, just like a terrible, terrible person, just a massive dick. But morally speaking, they are upstanding and believe in things and will stand up for what, quote unquote, is right. And I find that when one of those characters shifts so their moral beliefs align with their being a massive dick beliefs, it just makes them less interesting.
Agreed.
I'm not sure what to make of the Udina betrayal. I think that he always was very pro-humanity, and that has him aligned with Cerberus at least a little bit. But whether he was indoctrinated or not, and maybe he reached out to Cerberus, but then in his meeting with Cerberus, they indoctrinated him with Reaper Tech. I don't know exactly how it went. I always believed in him being way too pro-humanity, which is why I basically accepted him siding with Cerberus and allowing this coup to take place. But him being a power-hungry, pro-human jerk, I think that's consistent, but this is a dramatic turn, giving up the entire Citadel. But anyway, this is mostly just a small plot point to have you fight Cerberus again and see what happens to Ashley or Caden. After the events of this, you more side quests open up to you, and the main story goes to Rannoch, the Quarian homeworld. You do some you talk to all the Quarian admirals. There you have a chance to rescue one. You have a chance to do. You meet up with Legion again if he survives the events of Mass Effect 2. If you didn't recruit Legion in Mass Effect 2 and instead gave him to Cerberus laboratories, you actually fight Legion as an enemy when you raid a Cerberus base later in the game. But that didn't happen with any of us. I think we all recruited Legion.
Legion is too cool not to recruit.
Yeah, you learn a lot about the history of the Quarians and Geth over the course of these missions. Some optional, some part of the main story. But the gist of it is, if Tali and Legion are both survive and they're both loyal, and you do the Quarian side missions before doing the priority mission on Rannoch, and you and Tali was accepted in the Quarian trial in Mass Effect 2 instead of exiled, then that gives you enough, narrative points to possibly have a peaceful resolution between the Geth and Quarians. You can convince the Quarians to stand down and stop attacking the deactivated Geth warships, and if you have a very, very high Paragon or Renegade score, and if you in Legion's loyalty mission in Mass Effect 2, whether you chose to try to reprogram the Geth or destroy the rogue Geth in that one, that will affect the number of Geth forces present. So you can side with the Geth and have a lot of Quarians be wiped out, side with the Quarians and have a lot of Geth be wiped out, or try to broker peace in the middle of the conflict and have most of the Quarians and most of the Geth survive the conflict and have both of them join. The problem is Legion will die no matter what. Sometimes it ends up with you shooting Legion if you totally side with the Quarians. Sometimes it ends with Legion dying away on his own, basically removing all of the AIs present in the Legion unit so that they can dissipate among the Geth and make them and turn them good. So Legion will always die. But if most of the Quarians are wiped out in this conflict, whether you went for peace or you went for a pro-Geth outcome, Tali can jump off a cliff and commit suicide if too many Quarians die. But if you totally side with the Quarians and Tali was loyal after Mass Effect 2, or if you broker peace and most of the Quarians are still surviving, then Tali will not kill herself. But the way this can end is you can have a lot of Geth, a lot of Quarians, most of both. Legion will always die. Tali might commit suicide, or she might survive. There's a lot of ways Rannoch could go down. And even though I was renegade basically the whole time, I basically yelled down the Quarians to stop shooting and managed to get peace with a lot of Geth and Quarian units together. How did the Rannoch missions go for you guys?
Pretty much the same, except with less shouting.
Fair.
Yeah, I threaded the needle. I got them both together. Again, I feel like that was the most narratively interesting option. Even ignoring good and evil, it's interesting to see these two groups putting aside their generations long animosity to fight against the Reapers. That's interesting, and I feel like other choices are less so. I feel like Tali throwing herself off a cliff is super interesting if you're into the most depressing thing I can imagine ever.
Yeah, that's real rough. But I think they even give you more context for the conflict, because in those side missions leading up to it, you learn a lot about the Quarians and the Geth, including like scenes from the Geth memory banks of the very first Geth rebellions and the very first self-actualization by Geth AIs. It's really interesting how they set it all up.
I really love those scenes, like seeing how the Geth came to be and kind of demystifying it. It feels right for the third game to pull back the curtain completely.
Because Geth are probably the most common enemy in Mass Effect 1 and a very common enemy in Mass Effect 2. They've basically been they're basically just faceless enemy machines until you meet Legion. And then in Mass Effect 3, the Geth aren't as present as the Reapers or Cerberus, but they're but it, like you said, it's fully it's fully learning more about the Geth and giving you the opportunity to really sympathize with them. But no matter what happens, Legion passes away, which is a little unfortunate because I love my robot friend.
I do too, but it's a good death. It's a satisfying death.
I think that the most satisfying paths to take in Mass Effect 3 are brokering peace between the Quarians and the Geth and curing the genophage. But in doing so, you just get absolutely heartbreaking death scenes from Legion and Mordin. But I think it is serving very, very good story moments.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? There's one character we haven't talked about. Tali does join you permanently if she survives the events of Priority Rannoch. But we talked a little bit about Ashley and Liara, and Garrus is back, and Tali. There's James Vega, who's a bit of a meathead human. He's a soldier who's about to join the same N7 Marines program that Shepard is a veteran of. He's all right, but he's mostly comedy, mostly a replacement for not having a Krogan on your team anymore, because he's a assault shotgun heavily armored guy, just like Rex and Grunt were. We didn't talk. We mentioned that Edie joins your team by taking over an android. Edie's a pretty fun party member here. She has a lot of tech skills, so she's kind of like Tali or Mordin or Miranda, or a combination of those three from Mass Effect 2. But she also is, now that she's a fully unshackled AI, she's interested in learning about love and relationships, and she, if anything, really wants to respond to Joker's crush on her. So Joker, your human pilot since the Mass Effect 1, is sort of dating the AI pilot of his own ship, which is a weird vibe to say out loud, but is also kind of adorable. Even though it was definitely a Paragon, not a Renegade choice, I was always nudging them toward each other.
Yeah, I mean, the way the characters are developed, absolutely, they kind of just belong together. The only person that he would be happy with would be his ship.
And also, it's sort of adorable that Edie's the only person that calls him Jeff instead of Joker, but she doesn't start calling him Jeff until Joker saves her during the invasion of the Normandy scene in Mass Effect 2. So like you can see her feelings become like taking form even before she like convinces him to dance at the club in the Citadel. It's just very sweet how it all plays out.
Yeah, it's a really nice relationship that kind of builds up in the background if you're paying attention.
The other relationship in the background that builds up if you're paying attention is if you don't romance Tally or Garrus, and Tally and Garrus are both straight, so only a male can romance Tally, only a female can Shepard can romance Garrus. But if you romance neither of them, and they both survive to the end, and they're then before the final mission, you see them embracing each other in the battery area of the ship. So like that's another background romance that sort of takes form, but especially since they start hanging out more and going out drinking together. If you're romancing neither of them, because I think they mentioned this in the Codex. The Quarians and Turians have similar physiology and proteins, so their senses of taste and their diets and biologies are closer together than other alien species are. So it's they bond over not being able to eat the same food as the humans on the Normandy and stuff. It's cute seeing that play out. But there's one character we haven't really mentioned yet, the DLC character Javik, who was day one DLC back in 2012. So this is the one DLC of Mass Effect 3 that I had played before this year. But Javik is the last remaining Prothean. You find basically a sarcophagus on Eden Prime, the location of the very first mission of Mass Effect 1. So you go back to Eden Prime for the first time in 5 years of development in terms of how this happened 10, 15 years ago. But after completing fighting off some Cerberus and finding the sarcophagus, you free Javik, and you have a Prothean warrior as your final party member, or well, he can be your third or fourth party member depending on how things shape up and when you recruit him. But Javik he's really interesting. You learn about Prothean culture from him. He has a lot of really fascinating clashes with Liara because he teaches everyone that the Protheans were an imperialist power that enslaved other races, and they weren't just purely enlightened beings of reason and science like Liara maybe assumed they were. And
that's funny as hell.
Yeah, it's great. And he also tells you that the Reapers didn't wipe out the Protheans instantly; that it took centuries. And when Javik was born, the Reapers had already invaded, so he only knew war his entire life and only got to see the fall of the Prothean Empire and not its peak. He also mentions that Protheans were a very single-minded species, so once they were born and their role in society was determined, they were basically bred and driven to be as strong and powerful and able as possible in that role. So because he was born as a soldier, he really only knew being a soldier, which Liara finds disappointing in a way. But for Javik to be a very warlike and violent team member, almost like Zaid or something from Mass Effect 2, but also your window into the Prothean culture from 50,000 years ago, makes him a really interesting party member. And it's kind of sad that he's relegated to the Zaid Kasumi DLC slot in this game.
It blows my mind that he was not part of the original game. That is the most greedy move I could possibly imagine, because I didn't actually know that he was DLC when I started playing Legendary Edition. I just assumed he was there. And the idea that space on the ship could remain empty and that he's not there is dumb. It's dumb. It's just a stupid thing. I mean, some of my favorite moments, I love Liara, but watching Liara just constantly being taken down a peg by Javik explaining his actual culture is one of the funniest things in the game for me. It will never not make me laugh when she's like, oh, okay, my entire life has been a lie. All of my work, everything I've studied has been, wrong. That is really funny to me.
Totally agree. Javik's interaction and dialogue is great, and it's shocking that he was DLC and not baked in part of the original game.
And this time around, with Kasumi, once you had her and had done her mission, she was kind of just there. You could talk to her and have like non-dialogue tree conversations where she'd throw off little one-liners. Javik feels like a fully integrated member of the party. He feels as fully realized as the rest of the crew. And yeah, getting that window in the Prothean culture and having it be nothing like you've been taught this entire series. Oh, that's satisfying, not just for seeing Liara's reaction to it, but for like feeling my own reaction to it. I like that I myself was fooled, you know?
Agreed. But, now that we've talked about Javik a little bit, let's talk about some of the other DLC. There's 3 other large pieces of DLC that were added to Mass Effect 3. A bunch of smaller stuff like weapon and armor sets that are baked in as part of Legendary Edition. But there's a extended side quest, one called Leviathan, which is where you discover the race that created the Reapers ages ago. It turns out that they are enormous squid-like or cuttlefish-like beings that you decide to name Leviathans. And the reason that Reapers resemble squids are because the first Reaper, which is Harbinger from Mass Effect 2, was made in the image of these Leviathan creatures. So you find one of the first Leviathans, you eventually talk it into fighting against the Reapers instead of remaining hidden as they've been for possibly millions of years. And they give you a whole bunch of war assets for completing the Leviathan missions, even though there isn't really a Paragon or Renegade decision to be had there. Something like 400 points. It's crazy. I thought that was a pretty good, interesting storyline. There's a lot of moments of drama, including when you do an underwater walk in a mech. That's that gave me some BioShock vibes for a second. But ultimately, I like the other 2 better. Omega is meeting up with Arya T'Loak to take back the Omega station that's been taken over by Cerberus. It's a hugely exciting drama there. You team up with Arya and a female Turian that runs one of the mercenary gangs in Omega, and together you take down a Cerberus general. It's hugely action packed and mostly just hanging out with these 2 very cool side characters and getting into a lot of firefights. It was I don't think Mass Effect 3 is a very hard video game. I thought that 2 was considerably more difficult overall in terms of just the action and the shooting. But Omega has some of the most intense shooting segments of the entire game.
I think that the ending of Omega is hysterically funny. That if you're playing as a woman and you do everything right, Arya will kiss you, and it'll be a really good kiss. If you're a guy, she will kiss you, and then she will get a look on her face like, ugh. It's really hilarious.
That's interesting because, all right, I will talk more about this soon, but I didn't realize that the male kiss and female kiss were different. That's hilarious. I guess Arya has a type.
Yeah, check it out on YouTube when you get a chance. It's a really subtle little change in the cutscene, but it's very funny.
The last bit of DLC that I think is important to address is Citadel, which is which I think the quest is called Shore Leave. But basically, you're given a huge, beautiful apartment on the Citadel that used to belong to Admiral Anderson. And then from there, you can do a bunch of... you can go into an area called Silversun Strip. That's basically just a fun district in the Citadel. There's a casino, a game arcade, a battle arena that I mentioned before. And you can meet anybody in the game that survived up to this point and had their side quests completed up to this point. So I was able to do... everyone available other than Rex, Samara, and Ashley, because even though Ashley survived my playthrough, I missed her cutscene on the Citadel, so I didn't recruit her for the party. And also Morinth cannot be recruited, and Morden does not join the party, even though Morden does leave some messages on your answering machine. But you basically do this long quest that has a casino heist, and you fight some remnants of Cerberus, including a woman named Maya and a clone of yourself. So you get to see the Shepard that you designed, possibly all the way back in Mass Effect 1, be the villain in your own story briefly, which is pretty amusing. And he was a Cerberus clone, or she was a Cerberus clone, intending to replace you by going into the archives and getting your fingerprints and other details changed. But you're able to stop them before they hijack the Normandy and fly off into the sunset. And after all that's done, you can have a party at Anderson's apartment with a lot of hilarious shenanigans able to take place. I'm so sad I didn't have Rex in my party to join for this party, as it were. But it's really exciting. But my favorite part of it is that in Morden's answering machine, he tells a story about when he was younger on Omega, and how he teamed up with a young Asari woman to take out a mercenary gang leader, and they had a romantic encounter afterwards. And in the message, he implies that it was indeed Arya T'Loak. So
it makes me wonder just how truthful that story is.
Maybe I understand, but I think Arya expresses curiosity about what happened to Morden in the dialogue in the Omega DLC, and so I think that deep down, even though they never could be, they could never settle down together because they were always doing their own thing. But I think deep down, Arya always sort of admired Morden and thought it was impressive that they managed to hook up and he evaded her attempts to kill him. So because I don't know, maybe Solarians aren't quite her type, but I believe in Arya and Morden. I trust Morden's version of events here. But again, it only really works if you pay attention to everything Morden and Arya say in their dedicated side quests, including the Omega DLC, and maybe make some logical leaps in listening to Morden's answering machine in the Citadel DLC.
I think the Citadel DLC is, I've heard it described as fan service done right, where almost everything in it is fan service payoffs if you've played all of the games and you've invested time into the characters and all of the character side quests and everything, you're going to get a lot out of it.
It is so good. I was so entertained start to finish. I want every big RPG to have an everyone has fun at a party scene now, because it just gave me everything I wanted.
It was such a great way to literally blow off steam before this big final mission.
James Vega's dance animations make the entire DLC worth it.
Everyone making fun of Shepard dancing is worth it for me.
Oh, yeah. Oh, and if Garrus is not your romantic partner, you can be a wing woman for him at a bar at the casino. And you get to see Miranda try to act normal and wear an evening dress at the casino. But you have to do the Citadel late in the game for that, because Miranda's dedicated scene is on a horizon near the very end of the game. We haven't even talked about that part of the game in this episode yet. But like being able to interact in a fun way with every character individually, and then seeing them interact together in a bunch of drunken conversations that sometimes involve dancing, I loved all of it. It was so good.
It was great. Now, my only, again, this is a criticism I have of it, and it worked fine for me, which is your clone, Shepard's clone, is a speciest, just basically the ideal Cerberus agent.
Just like my Shepard.
Human-centric, very, just a huge, doesn't really care about her or his teammates or people that are working under him. It's just like everything that a Paragon Shepard is not. And I feel like that contrast might be lost slightly if you play pure renegade jerk Shepard, where it's like, what's the difference between these two characters?
No, as a renegade jerk Shepard, I thought it fit fairly well, because that just meant that my clone and I were definitely cut from the same cloth. And instead of, even though they have similar ideals, it was more about the clone being determined to survive and replace you, and my Shepard being determined not to be replaced. Like they immediately clashed because there could only be one. So like it fit. I thought it fit just fine, but part of it was just a mutual, a mutual desire to eliminate the other. Wes, what were your favorite parts of the Citadel DLC?
All of it. I absolutely adore that DLC. I think it makes all arguments about the ending of the game being unsatisfying almost moot, because this feels like the proper wrap up to the characters, at least, even if the plot isn't what you were looking for. It also holds true to one of my biggest beliefs about storytelling, that stakes cannot seem high, horror cannot seem horrifying, unless you see lives working as normally and see relatively joyous times. You get to see it, like, not only that these people were pulled together by danger, but like what kind of lives they could live if things actually worked out for them. And it makes it seem all the more important to actually have people survive, to actually solve the problem at hand. Because it's not just like an amorphous end of the world. It's the end of these people and this kind of togetherness and this kind of unity.
I just, after I saw the scene of you busting Grunt out of holding for going on a drunken rave the night before the party, I immediately went onto YouTube and watched it again. I liked it so much. There is so much joy and fun in the Citadel DLC that it made me want to replay the whole trilogy again, so I can see how Rex and Samara behave after it. Ashley as well, although I was less interested in her, of course.
Ashley hooks up with James, which I think is hysterically funny.
Excellent. No, you see, now I want that again. Like I'm gonna totally go into Vermeer and Mass Effect 1 next year, intending to save Ashley again. no, I'm sorry, no, intending to save Caden this time, but end up saving Ashley again just so she and James can hook up. I fully believe that now. But anyway,
hang on. I just want to mention my favorite scene in the party. Like, there's tons of different scenes, and you can only see half of them in one playthrough unless you do a save, because you can either choose to have like a laid back kind of relaxed party, or you can choose to have like a crazy party. And there'll be different scenes depending on which one. But my favorite scene is Trainer and Edie upstairs. Trainer, who is the comm specialist.
Yeah, she's the replacement of Kelly from Mass Effect 2, and she's also a lesbian and a romance option for a female shepherd.
Yeah. There's a scene where apparently before she knew that Edie was sentient, would mention that her voice was super sexy when she was working on the new ship, and Edie is like interrogating her about this upstairs, and she's getting more and more embarrassed. But the best part is Tally is across from them, sitting on the couch, just really uncomfortable, poisoning herself with cheese because she is just trying to like not be involved in this conversation. Literally poisoning herself with cheese.
She definitely likes cheese, but she knows her body can't handle it because of the quarry and the immune system. So she's just like, while this awkward conversation is happening, Tally's just like, this cheese is so delicious, but I'm going to pay for it very, very soon. I'm going to have to run so many diagnostics after this. It was...
How much cheese is too much cheese? It's my favorite. One of my favorite moments in the game is Tally poisoning herself with cheese. It's amazing.
My favorites are definitely James Vega's dance animations. Then then Morden's message about possibly hooking up with Arya T'Loak, and then after that, I think maybe Grunt being a bouncer at the door and just yelling at her and just telling groups of people no over and over is pretty satisfying. But overall, the Citadel DLC is very welcome levity after a pretty interesting sort of action-packed main segment to the story. But going back to the main story, there's another scene on the Citadel where you finally convince the Asari counselor to join you. You go to Thessia, the Asari homeworld, where a mission goes very badly. Kai Leng, the assassin from the first Citadel attack, basically like steals the Prothean data that's key to stopping the Reapers. You track Kai Leng back to Horizon, where you meet Miranda again. There's a Cerberus facility there that was capturing humans, turning them into Reaper husks, and then experimenting on the husks. It's real dark stuff. Miranda survives the encounter with Kai Leng the assassin if you have some certain conversations with her earlier in the game, and it also helps if she was loyal and survived the events of Mass Effect 2. There's a lot of ways Miranda can die in these missions. And Miranda also confronts her father and sister at the end. But there's a lot, they can go a lot of different ways depending on the events leading up to it, especially if Miranda is loyal or not. But after that, you're basically thrusted into the end game. You do an assault on assault on a Cerberus base, and then immediately after that, an attack. You go to Earth to try and liberate Earth from the Reaper threat. A lot of intense fighting in all of these. You learn that Edie was originally the Moon AI that you had to shut down in Mass Effect 1 in the Cerberus base. That you get a lot of good commentary from her, and especially if you're the teammate you bring along was on your team in Mass Effect 2, they have a lot to say about Cerberus. It's a really good part of the mission. You finally kill Kai Leng at the end there, the jerk assassin that's been a thorn in your side for most of the game. Kai Leng basically replaces Shepard as the Elusive Man's sort of go-to super agent. So like there's the implication that in the 2 years you were away, Kai Leng became the Elusive Man's new favorite. But on Earth, there's and also that base is where you fight Legion if a Legion was assimilated into Cerberus in Mass Effect 2. But on Earth, you fight a Banshee version of Morinth if Morinth survives the events of Mass Effect 2.
I love how it's not even mentioned. They're there. That's it.
Yeah, no, you find... Well, again, I had Morinth in Mass Effect 2, so you get emails from her at your terminal, and you find more in your Shadow Broker data in Liara's room, but she doesn't really interact with you directly at all in Mass Effect 3. which is disappointing because I mean, and just makes it. I think it goes to show that even if you are trying to go full renegade, it's just more satisfying having Samara on your team in Mass Effect 2 over Morinth. But again, makes me want to replay all of the whole trilogy and make slightly different decisions. But then on Earth, you battle back a Reaper threat, and then and finally confront the Elusive Man a final time on the steps of the Citadel after you get to a beacon on Earth that teleports you to the core of the Citadel. And you have to make a lot of Paragon or Renegade choices in a row, but it ends up with you shooting the Elusive Man or even convincing the Elusive Man that he has indeed become indoctrinated and have him shoot himself. And it's sort of the final dialogue challenge of the game.
Yes, a fitting end for evil President Bartlett.
Yeah. Poor Ramon Estevez. Things like I really, you know, Mass Effect 3 has you fully going back to the Alliance like you were in Mass Effect 1, but I think in Mass Effect 2 it did fit the narrative, like working with the bad guys, even looking back on it, because I thought about this a lot because I thought it was such a weird swing how Cerberus was terrorists in Mass Effect 1, then literally the good guys in Mass Effect 2, then even worse terrorists in Mass Effect 3. But in Mass Effect 2, I think it fits because, like, they were the only group that really believed in you, and they presented themselves as just trying to find people doing the right thing for humanity and giving them as many resources as possible. But then when the Elusive Man's vision is twisted badly, without Shepard to be a guiding light, they go back to being horrible terrorists again. I was a little sad killing the Elusive Man because I believe that if circumstances were different, they would be on your side in Mass Effect 3. But just, he had gone too far astray.
Well, again, like it depends on whether or not, it depends on what you're looking for to your narrative. Like I really like the Paragon ending of the Elusive Man. I feel like it has a moment of triumph for him rather than getting shot where he kills himself. Rather than be used by the Reapers. That, for me, is a moment of, if not redemption, at the very least, a glimmer of it.
I ended up shooting him because, I mean, that was just the Renegade interrupt choice.
Yeah.
But I agree. If you can force him into that outcome, it's a satisfying outcome.
Yeah, it really matches, like, what he says he is actually how he acts in that moment. Not wanting his autonomy removed from him forcefully. It's kind of the choice between what he believes himself to be and what he kind of shows himself to be after being indoctrinated.
But I really feel, though, if Shepard was not forced to retire on Earth for 2 years, and Shepard, Jacob, and Miranda and others had stayed with Cerberus, I think Cerberus could have been a force for good if circumstances were different. But unfortunately, that is certainly not the case throughout the entirety of Mass Effect 3.
I really disagree.
Well, the thing is, I think I just liked the vibe of Mass Effect 2 of being like this extra government agent that was trying to do the right thing all the time. Like I kind of like the Paragon version of Cerberus in Mass Effect 2 if you go the Paragon route most of the way. So that just made me a little bit sad to see them fall so far in Mass Effect 3.
But that's the thing. I don't think they fell that far. Like I always interpreted Cerberus in Mass Effect 2 as the Elusive Man was really trying very hard to only give Shepard a piece of the picture, like really present in the best light. But I truly feel that even if Shepard and Miranda and Jacob had stuck with Cerberus at the end of that game and it continued working for them, the second that the Reapers showed up, that the Elusive Man would have pushed Cerberus in the same direction that they ended up. I feel like those experiments would have happened because at that point, the Elusive Man and Cerberus on the whole thinks that the galaxy is done. It's finished. There's no possibility of survival. The only way we're going to do this is if we drop any semblance of morality and just be as ruthless and as horrible as the Reapers are. I feel like they would have reverted to that if given no other option. So I feel like this was the end game to Cerberus regardless.
That's probably true. My only feeling is that I miss the Mass Effect 2 version of Cerberus. is where my feeling comes from, I guess there. But after you defeat the Elusive Man, you finally discover what the Catalyst is. The Catalyst is a basically a collective AI unconscious that was residing inside the Citadel and is the guiding beacon for summoning the Reapers every 50,000 years. And but reaching it and defeating most of the Reapers and reaching the Catalyst and combining it with the Crucible project that you've been building this entire time basically gives Shepard an opportunity to be the first organic being to since the Leviathans to influence the Reaper intelligence. And your 3 doors to walk through were the 3 endgame decisions, which were even more stark before they were adjusted in DLC, are the red door, which is to destroy all sentient AI in the universe, which includes the Reapers, includes the mass relays, and includes all the Geth, and even includes Edie. Or a control option where Shepard sacrifices himself to replace the Catalyst as the collective conscious control of the Reapers, and gains control of the Reapers to make them a force for good or a force for rebuilding instead of a force for destruction. Or the third option, synthesis, where Shepard also sacrifices themselves, but it turns every organic being in the universe partially synthetic, and every synthetic being in the universe partially organic, making them. And so instead of being synthetics versus organics, it basically makes all beings related enough that the Reapers will view them as no longer something to be harvested. So those are the choices: destroy, control, or synthesize. And if you don't have enough war assets, you can only have the destroy option, or only the destroyer and control option, or all the options with better outcomes and more details revealed at the end if your war assets are above 4,000. And again, and my war assets were around 8,000, so I had everything I wanted to do. But I think you can still do everything you want as long as it's above 5,000 or maybe 5,500. That's sort of the minimum to have the maximum number of efficacy.
There is apparently another option where you can walk away and let the Reapers destroy the galaxy.
Yes, that is an option.
I mean, not what I would call a very satisfying ending, and certainly not in Shepard's character, where they're not there a Paragon or a Renegade, but you can do it.
That's correct. I did fail to mention that, but also it was something that never crossed my mind. I really was just choosing which of those 3 first doors to walk through. But now, I mean, that's the $1 million question. Which did you choose?
Blue. I grabbed them blue handles and did control primarily because I had never done it before, and that felt like something unique to try. Where all of a sudden the Reapers and whatnot, they kind of vacate with the promise that they can be used for good in the future. But for the most part, what we see is just the Reapers kind of lifting off from all of the hostile planets all at once, and all of the non-Leviathan Reapers just kind of shutting down, more or less.
I chose green because I felt like, in terms of the choices that my Shepard would make, my Shepard never would have chosen destroy, because, like, very much proven with the trying to fight for peace with Legion. I don't buy that she would have like sacrificed every inorganic life form. Blue, I didn't buy it because I thought that blue sounds like they're trying to trick Shepard into becoming indoctrinated. Like, hey, become part of us. And I don't think my Shepard would have bought it. Whereas synthesis sort of lets everyone lives, everyone wins. Yes, there's change forced on the galaxy, but everyone's still alive, and it, more importantly, is still themselves. It's not like they've lost their individuality. They're still themselves. They just have inorganic components now. I really, really wanted there to be an ending where Shepard literally could have talked the Reapers down and been like, look, there is peace between AI and organics. Look at what's going on out there. We're fighting together against you. Has that ever happened before in any of the previous cycles? I felt like that choice that you made earlier could have had bigger consequences for the ending. I didn't have a big problem with the endings of this game. I just didn't. I just thought, I don't know. I don't feel like any of them would really work. With, I don't know. I don't have the problem with the endings that a lot of people did, but I found it somewhat unsatisfying. Yeah.
in 2012, when the game first came out, the endings were even less fleshed out here than they were here. There was no post game cutscenes showing the surviving crew members doing activity. It was basically a much shorter roll to credits than what you experienced in Legendary Edition. I think that DLC cap happened a couple months after the game launched. But in an amusing coincidence, I picked red. Each of us went a different direction. I destroyed the mass relays and all synthetic life in the universe, but also because I had more than 5,000 war assets or whatever, Shepard is shown still alive and breathing on Earth after the events. But I think the only way to get that outcome with the possibility of Shepard surviving is if you pick destroy and you have a ton of war assets above. I think above 5,000, but I don't know the exact number. But again, that was just my Shepard's love of violence and hatred of the Reapers boiling over 3 games, and disrespect for most aliens in general. I treated my relationships with Liara and Thane as mostly sexual, but I just was a bad girl Shepard the entire way, and I felt that destruction was what she would have chosen. But that also just the dissatisfaction of not having Rex and Samara in the Citadel DLC, and how badly I felt for being rude to Tali and Liara throughout the game. But seeing that the ending cutscenes and post game were improved following my memory of 2012, that just made me want to replay this game again. I've said it multiple times this episode. I'm a Paragon deep down, and I want to do another run where I try a new class and but cure the genophage and hang out with Samara in Anderson's dope apartment. Because Anderson's apartment, holy moly, have we mentioned that it has like 5 bathrooms, 5 bedrooms, a hot tub, a pool table, at least 3 fireplaces? It is an out of control apartment.
Yeah, Anderson must be very independently wealthy outside of his job.
Has to be, because I mean that apartment is bigger and nicer than my house many times over. And the Citadel, that neighborhood in the Citadel looks expensive, but I don't know. I don't have real estate details to share with you.
Yeah, apparently they sell like 6-bedroom apartments there or something.
I guess. I mean, I didn't count all of them, but that had to be at least 5 bedrooms, right?
Yeah, it's something to that tune.
There was bedrooms in each corner of both floors. And whatever, it was an absolutely bonkers apartment, and at least like 2 kitchens and a minibar in one of the kitchens. It was completely not crazy. And also Vega's cooking eggs at the end. At least, like I didn't see him hook up with Ashley, although your romantic partner does wake up in bed next to you if things go a certain way at the Citadel. But the whole time on the main floor, I just heard James yelling in the background, "Who wants eggs? Hey, Javik, you want eggs? Dally, can you eat eggs?" Like, all right. If I'm talking about how James Vega likes his eggs, we're probably near the end of the episode. But there was a special event on November 7th, earlier this month, where BioWare shared some details, celebrated Mass Effect a little bit, and showed the snippets of a new trailer showing a damaged Mass Effect relay being rebuilt, but with Cerberus colors and some voiceover from Liara. That made everyone that saw it and a fan of Mass Effect buzzing about a possible sequel. There might be a Mass Effect sequel in the future, but we don't know anything about it, especially since Liara's an Asari. An Asari lived 1,000 years or more, so this could be right after the events of Mass Effect 3, or it could be the far future, but Liara is still around. Individually, I want to ask you, let's assume that a Mass Effect sequel is on the horizon somewhere, maybe a few years from now. What would you want out of it exactly? Like, you don't have to pitch me an entire story idea, but how would you like BioWare and EA to approach a new Mass Effect sequel? I'll go first, give you some time to think. I think Shepard's story should be ending now. Like, having Shepard as a symbol of being a savior of the galaxy is good. But I think that it's time to design a new main character and face a new conflict in this universe that I love. So maybe like having no returning characters other than Liara. Maybe the game takes place hundreds of years after the first Mass Effect trilogy, but you get to choose You can make your main character any race instead of just a human, and have a sort of a multi-race alien spanning conflict. That's something I'm interested in. Like a Mass Effect version of Dragon Age Inquisition that gives you more freedom in character customization, because deep down really I just want to be a Krogan in this world. So like, let me be a Krogan and face a new conflict, and let Shepard rest in peace is my feeling for a Mass Effect future sequel.
If I had to make some predictions, I know that it was not incredibly well received, but I don't think that they're going to let Andromeda go to waste. I feel like whatever happened in Andromeda, no spoilers since you haven't played it, will impact what happens in Mass Effect 4. Obviously, Liara is going to be a part of it because Liara is alive. Liara could technically still be alive in the time frame of Andromeda because they do live 1,000 years.
I believe that Liara is the only character from Mass Effect 1 or 2 that is guaranteed to survive Mass Effect 3. Edie can also die if you choose the destruction path, because that'll wipe her out. But I believe that Liara and maybe also James are the only people guaranteed to survive.
I think it'd be pretty funny if an Asari showed up who looks exactly like Shepard and is voiced by Jennifer Hale and is obviously Liara's kid.
I'd go nuts for that.
I would not be surprised if that's where they go. If there's just this ridiculously badass Asari who sounds exactly like FemShep. And don't even comment on it. Just let it be there and just let it sit. They're building a new Mass Effect Relay. If I had to take a guess at a storyline, maybe Andromeda, after everyone has settled down, they now have the technology and the know-how to build a Mass Effect Relay so they can reconnect with the Milky Way. And they go to the Milky Way and discover that everything has gone to hell, maybe unintended consequences because of the choices made at the end of Mass Effect 3. I think Shepard should be dead. I do. I feel like Shepard's story is done. I feel like if you bring back Shepard, you're going to be undercutting whatever resonance the choices made at the end of 3 had. I just don't see where else you can bring the character.
Yeah, I'm team let Shepard lie as well. I'd like to see this pushed, far enough in the future that we see like world advances that are beyond what we could like really theorize, somewhere beyond the next century, into the point where like we're dealing with new technology that we haven't seen before. We're dealing with new dynamics. We have to learn about the universe again, because that was one of my favorite parts of Mass Effect 1 was getting to know a universe. I also cursed the world a little bit when Sollosi mentioned Dragon Age Inquisition, because that was exactly what I was thinking. Something a little closer to Inquisition. Let me make my own character. Let me play within this world a little more.
I enjoyed Dragon Age 1, 2, and 3 quite a bit, and I think they parallel Mass Effect a little bit, because with each one, they got a little bit better and smarter and more inclusive about how to handle things like romance and a multi-ethnic, multi-race world. Again, I think that the romances in Mass Effect got better options and better dialogue from 1 through 3. But I liked Dragon Age. I didn't like Dragon Age 2 because you were forced to be a human in that game. And more locked into a certain character type. But in Inquisition, you could be a Kunari for the first time, or you could be a dwarf again. And I loved that, because my favorite route in Dragon Age Origins is dwarf noble. So like I like Shepard, and I like what they do with Shepard in Mass Effect. But I kind of wish I could be a main character, Krogan or Asari, because I think the world they built is so cool. I want to explore more parts of it. So that's my vision for a future Mass Effect. But and I think they are making something. I don't even know if it's called Mass Effect 4 or not, but I'm pretty confident that it's coming.
I feel like I might be wrong about this. Again, like these are just guesses, but based on the color scheme you were mentioning, I think Cerberus in the Milky Way is done. I think with the death of the Elusive Man, that Cerberus is gone. However, it would be very, very interesting if Cerberus makes an appearance in Andromeda 2, or what, like in that world, because no spoilers. No, I don't think this is spoilers. There are hints that there's somebody else in the background who's responsible for this mission to the Andromeda Galaxy. And logically, that group could be Cerberus, or could have been the Elusive Man. So the idea that like 1,000 years later, Cerberus suddenly shows back up in the Milky Way with some kind of a plan to assert human dominance, that would be interesting.
I don't know how interesting it can be if it's taking that much from Mass Effect Andromeda, but
I liked Mass Effect Andromeda. I really did.
And I love the idea of pulling from it because the concept of Mass Effect Andromeda is really cool. If I'm being my pessimistic self and putting on those pants, I don't think
Your
they're going to do it.
pessimistic pants.
My pessimistic pants, exactly. Thank you.
You should probably not abbreviate that as, my piss pants.
oh yeah, my PP. I love putting on the PP. Yep.
I'm good. I don't see them dipping into that well just because it underperformed so much. I don't think they're going to want to lean on it too much, but I think we are going to see at least acknowledgments and codex entries. And I mean, I'd be happy if I were wrong because that setting is so cool. There's so much more that they can do with it given a little bit of time.
Whatever they choose for Mass Effect 4 or Andromeda 2 or for Mass Effect New Beginning, whatever they call it, whatever the release date is, please take 3 months after that. So just say, here's the release date. Now let's move it 3 months later so we have time to actually debug the damn game.
I think it is far too optimistic that they are going to reference Mass Effect Andromeda at all in a potential future Mass Effect project. I think the Legendary Edition was trying to reignite people's interest, and they want us to forget Mass Effect Andromeda ever happened. But but we're all optimistic about the future of Mass Effect just because this is a genuinely great trilogy and a genuinely wonderful world they created. So I'm very confident that we are getting more Mass Effect eventually, but I doubt it's going to be related to Mass Effect Andromeda. But if we're talking about Mass Effect Andromeda and Wes's PP going into the well, then I think it is time to end the episode for real.
My pessimistic pants. I'm not making fun of you, I swear.
I like to think I'm a wordsmith.
Well, that's been Retro Encounters month of Mass Effect, listeners. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey through a trilogy of games that released from 2007 to 2012 and beyond. I think it's really satisfying. I think that Legendary Edition is a must play if you have enough first-person shooter tolerance to get through a brilliant RPG. That's sometimes problematic, but most of the time excellent. My thought after finishing it this time around was I want to play it again probably next year, and that may yet happen. But there won't be any more Retro Encounter episodes on it because I think we've all three of these episodes have gone fairly long, so I think we've exhausted the Mass Effect well as far as we're concerned here on RPG Fans Retro Encounter.
What's next, Dragon Age?
I wouldn't be a guest to Dragon Age Origins episode. I haven't played that game in at least 7 or 8 years. I think I played it right before Inquisition came out.
Well, hey, I haven't played them. I haven't played any of them yet. And Dreadwolf is theoretically coming out in a few months. We could do a Dragon Age month.
Yeah, there is a Dragon Age animated series coming very soon to Netflix. I think in December. So it's probably soon after this episode airs. So there's Dragon Age interest. We've had a very heavy BioWare year because we did 2 episodes on Knights of the Old Republic in February and now 3 episodes on Mass Effect in November. It'll be maybe Dragon Age is in our future, but I'm not going to make any promises. We'll run it by all the staff here at RPG Fan, but it wouldn't happen at least until 2023 because we have the rest of 2022 all planned out. Coming very soon, we're having a Xenoblade Chronicles 3 spoiler cast. That episode is already recorded. Zach and a few other Xenoblade fan people on RPG Fan did a full episode about Xenoblade Chronicles 3, one of the biggest RPG releases of 2022. And I know that that panel is going to be very enthused to talk about it, but I haven't listened to the full episode yet. But we're keeping with the Xeno theme throughout December because we're doing 2 episodes on a slightly older Xeno title, Xenosaga Episode 1, Der Wiederzermacht, which was a PlayStation 2 game from the early 2000s. It was Monolith Soft's first huge release following the founding of the studio after some key staff left Square Enix after making Xenogears. And that game is beloved by a lot of people. I have only seen a few of the opening cutscenes, and I'm going to make a sincere effort to play it for the first time for the podcast. So I'm excited to see exactly how that goes, and maybe we can get Tyler speaking for less than 70% of the entire episode. because I know he is the biggest fan of Xenosaga that I've ever heard of. So there's going to be a lot to talk about when that happens, and I'll be starting that game very, very soon. But also in December, we're doing our traditional year-end episode. Retro Encounter has done a year-in review episode every single year since 2015, and we are not breaking tradition this year. We're going to have a look back on our favorite RPGs of 2022 at the end of December, and in sort of a handshake and a nod with our partner podcast, Random Encounter. Jono, I think around the same time, we're going to have our Random Encounter do a look ahead to 2023 episode. Is that right?
Yeah, 2023 is a month and a half away, believe it or not. So yeah, it's about that time of year where we take a look at all of the big games that are coming out in 2023. And we got some, holy crap, some big ones coming out. Tears of the Kingdom. Wow, I mean, right there, just that. And we're probably also going to get some news about other releases in 2023 coming out at the Game Awards in a few weeks.
Yeah, exactly. Mega Man Battle Network Legacy Collection, the top of everyone's list for 2023. No one gives half a damn about I don't know. Is there a Final Fantasy game coming out? I don't remember. But anyway, in addition to Random Encounter and Retro Encounter, at the end of December, we are doing an episode about the Muppets that I'm very excited to record very soon. We will hear all about my theory on why animals should be Grunt from Mass Effect 2 in this
so excited
in this reinterpreted Muppet world of our favorite RPGs. But I maybe you thought I was going to say something else. Retro Encounter and Random Encounter are not the only podcast in RPG Fan. There's also Rhythm Encounter about RPG music. We recently did an episode on Pokemon, and I believe in December, there's going to be episodes about transport themes. We have a Music of the Year feature being planned, so in early 2023, that's going to happen. But there's a lot of Rhythm Encounter happening alongside Random and Retro Encounter. And I should maybe elaborate some more. Jono, Random Encounter is RPG Fan's flagship podcast that you host every 2 weeks, and it's about a variety of topics, but mostly focused on current events.
Yeah, we had a good episode. I'm trying to think about when this episode's being released. I think the last episode would have been you and I talking to the gang at Zeboyd Games.
I think you're right. Yes, we talked about This Way Madness Lies, a comedy RPG released earlier this month by Zeboyd Games, Bill Sternberg and Robert Boyd. So there's that interview podcast. Another Random Encounter episode recently was you and Caitlin talking about ace representation in RPGs. That was a fascinating discussion and a feature that Caitlin wrote for RPG Fan as well. But that's RPG Fans 3 podcasts, Random Encounter, Rhythm Encounter, and Retro Encounter. You should subscribe or listen to those however you prefer, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, or however. Please give us feedback however you can. But there's many other ways to interact with RPG Fan. You can email the podcast, retro@rpgfan.com, or visit rpgfan.com on Twitter, rpgfan.com on Instagram, rpgfan on Facebook, and with corresponding Discord, YouTube, and Twitch channels. Something going on all of those basically every day. There's also an RPG Fan shop that was introduced earlier this year. If you go to rpgfan.com/shop, you can visit our shop website hosted by tpublic.com, where you can find RPG Fan apparel, coffee mugs, accessories, and a variety of other things with more designs to come in the future. But if you want to give us feedback as individuals, not as a podcast, let's tell the listeners how to reach each of us, starting with you, Jono.
You can find me at jlogan@rpgfan.com.
Wes, same question to you.
You can find me at the Burning Wreckage of Twitter at Wes Iliff.
And listeners, to find me, I'm a couple places in the Burning Wreckage of Twitter. I'm at The Real Monsoon most of the time, at Evoca for Dogs other times, and on RPG Fans Discord, I am Monsoon Mike. So we did it. We saved the galaxy, each of us choosing to do so in a different way. But we don't know exactly which of those interpretations might make it to the future of this galaxy. But while we still have a galaxy to live in, thank you, good night, and good luck.